There is a pressure inside a man that does not disappear simply because he ignores it. It waits beneath the surface, quiet, patient, heavy. It moves into his thoughts before he notices it. It touches his attention, his eyes, his mood, his ability to sit alone without reaching for noise. This is what uncontrolled libido does. It does not always arrive as obvious hunger. Sometimes it arrives as restlessness, sometimes as irritation, sometimes as the silent need to be stimulated, distracted, confirmed, wanted. A man may believe he is calm, but his mind keeps circling the same images, the same fantasies, the same escape. He cannot stay with silence, because silence shows him the force he has never learned to govern. Desire is not evil. The body is not the enemy. But any force without order begins to occupy the throne. And when desire takes the throne, attention becomes its servant. This is why sexual energy cannot be treated as harmless entertainment. It is not just a private appetite. It is life force mixed with imagination, memory, loneliness, pride, insecurity, and the hunger to be seen. It reaches deeper than the body. It touches identity. It touches power. It touches the secret place where a man asks whether he is wanted, whether he is enough, whether he has command over himself. When that force has no structure, it begins to leak. It leaks through the eyes, through the hands, through the endless search for images, novelty, fantasy, and quick release. It leaks into the hours he said he would use for work. It leaks into the silence he said he could endure. It leaks into his discipline until his will becomes soft around the edges. Sexual energy does not become innocent because it is common. It does not become small because everyone jokes about it. A powerful force remains powerful even when a weak culture treats it casually. The question is not whether a man has desire. He should have desire. The question is whether his desire has a place, a boundary, a direction, and a master. And modern life gives that force almost endless ignition. A man no longer has to seek desire through effort, presence, risk, courtship, patience, or consequence. Desire is placed in front of him before he has earned the strength to carry it. Screens wake it up, images sharpen it, algorithms study it, novelty feeds it again and again, until the nervous system begins to expect stimulation as a normal condition. Every pause becomes an opening for a cheap signal. Every moment of boredom becomes a doorway back into the same pattern. What used to require pursuit now requires a thumb. What used to carry social weight now appears without responsibility, without friction, without cost. This does not make a man free. It makes him easier to move. The old restraints were not always gentle, but they had weight. Work had weight. Duty had weight. Difficulty had weight. Shame, reputation, family, discipline, and real-world consequence all pressed instinct into a shape. But when the fire is lit constantly and nothing teaches it direction, the man becomes heated but not forged. He becomes excited but not satisfied, busy but empty, hungry but unfocused. Modern life gives him ignition without initiation. It wakes the animal before it trains the man, and a force awakened too often, without purpose, begins to turn against the mind that cannot contain it. This is where the illusion begins. A man tells himself he is choosing, but choice requires distance. Choice requires the ability to feel the urge and not obey it. If every moment of stress sends him back to stimulation, that is not freedom. If every silence makes him search for noise, that is not freedom. If every discomfort becomes an excuse to release pressure, he is not deciding, he is repeating. The nervous system learns what a man practices. It learns the shortest path from tension to escape. It learns the quickest image, the easiest fantasy, the fastest way to avoid sitting with himself. Over time, the path becomes automatic. He feels restless, and his hand moves before his mind speaks. He feels lonely, and the old doorway opens. He feels inadequate, and he reaches for proof that he is still desired. This is not the behavior of a sovereign man. It is obedience wearing the mask of preference. He calls it pleasure because that sounds powerful, but beneath the pleasure is training, and whatever trains a man long enough begins to command him quietly from inside. The chain is invisible, but the pattern is real, practiced, and deeply familiar. Once a man has been trained this way, desire stops asking for permission. It begins to demand rank. And if there is no higher order inside him, the strongest impulse becomes the ruler by default. A man cannot give every appetite the same authority and expect to remain whole. Purpose must stand above pleasure. Discipline must stand above impulse. Responsibility must stand above release. When these things are not seated higher in the soul, libido climbs into their place. It starts deciding what deserves attention, what feels important, what should be delayed, and what can be abandoned. This is why many men do not lack energy. They lack hierarchy. They have fire, but no throne. Hunger, ambition, insecurity, lust, boredom, and fantasy all speak at the same volume. So the loudest one wins. Libido is an engine. It is not the driver. The engine can carry a man forward when there is direction, weight, and command. But when the engine takes the wheel, power becomes instability. Speed without steering is not strength, it is danger. A man begins to lose himself when his lowest urge is allowed to sit in the highest seat. That is the collapse of inner order. And when inner order collapses, perception begins to deform. The world does not change first. The eyes change. A woman is no longer met as a full human being, with her own silence, history, fear, dignity, and soul. She becomes a signal, a trigger, a mirror, a place where the man looks for proof that he is wanted, proof that he is powerful, proof that the emptiness inside him has not been exposed. This is not desire in its mature form. This is hunger mixed with insecurity. He begins to measure himself through attention, through response, through the imagined value of being chosen. If she looks away, he feels reduced. If another man is noticed, he feels threatened. If he is not confirmed, he becomes restless, defensive, or cold. His ambition also bends under this pressure. It stops reaching upward and starts reaching outward, searching for validation instead of building substance. He compares more than he creates. He reacts more than he leads. He wants to be seen, but he has not become solid enough to stand unseen. This is the distortion of uncontrolled libido. It turns people into symbols, rejection into humiliation, attraction into identity, and silence into danger. The man is not only chasing pleasure, he is trying to borrow a self from the eyes of others. And because he is trying to borrow a self from the eyes of others, his ambition begins to split apart. The energy that should be gathered into one clear direction becomes scattered across impulses, comparisons, fantasies, and small acts of escape. He may still look busy. He may still speak about goals. He may still imagine a powerful future. But inside, his force is divided. One part wants discipline. Another part wants stimulation. One part wants mastery. Another part wants comfort. One part wants depth. Another part cannot survive 10 quiet minutes without reaching for distraction. This is how a man becomes active, but shallow, hungry, but unfocused, moving but not building. The tragedy is not that he has no potential. The tragedy is that his potential is being spent in fragments. Deep work requires boredom. Strength requires repetition. Mastery requires silence, pressure, and long obedience to one path. But uncontrolled libido teaches the mind to hate delay. It makes stillness feel like punishment. It makes effort feel too slow. So the man keeps searching for intensity while avoiding depth, and slowly, his ambition loses its spine. What restores the spine is containment, not repression, not fear of the body, not hatred of desire. A man does not become disciplined by pretending he has no hunger. He becomes disciplined when hunger is placed beneath command. Containment means he can feel the pressure and not rush to discharge it. He can feel the image rise in the mind and let it pass without kneeling. He can sit in silence without needing to poison the silence with stimulation. This is not weakness. This is authority. Repression hides from desire. Indulgence serves desire. Containment stands in front of desire and gives it a place. Not the throne, not the voice of law, a place. The man begins by removing cheap ignition. He places distance between himself and the triggers that have been shaping him in secret. He does not negotiate with every urge. He does not make a temple out of his appetite. He builds a structure stronger than the mood of the moment. He stops feeding every spark. He stops treating boredom as an emergency. He trains his body until pressure has a direction. He works when the mind asks for escape. He studies when fantasy tries to pull him down. He creates instead of leaking. He allows discomfort to remain in the room, and slowly discomfort loses its power to command him. This is where sexual energy becomes usable. It is gathered. It is held. It is moved into labor, discipline, strength, learning, prayer, art, purpose, and presence. A man who can contain himself is not empty. He is charged. But the charge is no longer chaotic. It is organized under a higher will. Under that higher will, desire stops being a leak and becomes a current. It no longer pulls the man apart. It begins to carry him forward. The same pressure that once sent him searching for escape can now sharpen his attention, deepen his work, strengthen his body, and steady his presence. He is not less alive because he refuses cheap release. He is more alive because his energy is no longer scattered across 1,000 small permissions. His eyes become clearer. His movements become slower. His ambition becomes heavier, more patient, less dependent on applause. He can stand in tension without needing to run from it. He can feel attraction without surrendering his center. He can want without becoming owned by wanting. This is the difference between appetite and power. Appetite demands relief. Power accepts pressure and gives it direction. A man does not become strong by killing desire. He becomes strong when desire is placed beneath purpose, and purpose becomes the law inside him. And when purpose becomes the law inside him, desire finally knows its place. It does not vanish. It does not need to vanish. It bows. It becomes fuel, not master. Heat, not chaos. Strength, not slavery. A man who cannot govern desire will be governed by it, through his attention, his emotions, his identity, and his weakness for escape. Desire is not the enemy, but desire without order becomes a tyrant. A man becomes free when his urges no longer sit above his soul.